Thanks. I'll take it from here, Hampton.
Okay,
Representative Maxine Waters is a Democrat from California. Representative Gresham Barrett, a Republican from South Carolina. Both are members of the Financial Services Committee. Maxine, is this a defeat for the president in that he did not get a single Republican vote, given that he tried so hard?
Oh, absolutely not. I think that this showed that the president was true to his word. He reached out to Republicans. He talked about getting support on the opposite side of the aisle. He talked about bipartisanism all throughout the campaign. He reached out to Republicans. They rejected him. And it's so unfortunate because when he campaigned, he talked about getting rid of the pure politics, coming together and working for Americans.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised that the Republicans, having had him come over, they all said they liked him, that he made a great presentation, and then to turn their backs.
Gresham Barrett, how do you face the good people? Well, first of all, I don't have to read my notes to know that you voted against the bill, because all Republicans voted against the bill, and I'm pretty good at simple math like that. How do you face the people of South Carolina and say you voted against a bill to help the American economy that the U.S. president said was so... Let me let Gresham Barrett answer the question, Melissa. And that was seen as so necessary, and despite the call of a popular president.
Well, you know, listen, don't take my word for it. Take CBO's word. CBO said that only half of these monies would be spent within the first 2 years. When you look at the actual projects that are actually infrastructure projects, and the president talked about being shovel ready, I'm thinking about roads and sewer and water. 3 to 4% of this bill is that. But I guess the biggest thing that raised the red flag with me when it came to CBO, they talked about the amount of monies that were going to existing programs, government programs, creating government jobs, and these organizations would not be able to track these monies, to be accountable. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about $819 billion not being accountable to the American taxpayer.
Well, that's part of it, but I want to ask Representative Waters, you know, of this money, education is getting $66 billion, which is great. But I'm not sure that's stimulative. Less than 5% is going for roads and bridges. My question is, how is this stimulative?
It really is stimulative. As a matter of fact, there are many construction projects, and then we have
less
a lot
than 5% of the money is going for that. It seems like it should have been a bigger percent.
Just one moment. You're not counting it correctly. For example, I had an amendment that passed today that would provide job training for broadband. We have all of these communities in the rural areas, in the outer areas, that don't have broadband. Do you know how that's going to stimulate businesses?
And how quickly could that get up and running, do you think?
Oh, very quickly. As a matter of fact, because the telecommunications companies will be able to do the job training, they can put people on the street doing fiber optics and doing all of this work within 6 months.
Congressman,
this is very, very, very job created and very productive.
Well, there's a situation, Congressman Gresham, that politically, a lot of the quote-unquote non-stimulative spending that you don't like, it's going to go through anyway. You just don't have the votes, and President Obama has that political capital, and the former president is going to spend it. But if you could try to get some tweaks here, whether it's in the Senate or the conference committee version, what are you going to push for to make changes that you can realistically get in here?
Yeah, it's more tax for things. For example, there was one provision in the bill that was taken out. It was $200 million to resod the National Mall. That's more money in and of itself that's going to that one project than was going to small businesses. So I think if we're talking about a true stimulus package, and we're thinking long-term here, short-term and long-term, we've got to have more tax stimulus. You know, let's make the Bush tax cuts permanent. Let's make sure that...
Let's pick that up. Congressman Waters.
No.
Hold it. All we're asking for here, Congressman Waters, a simple bit of compromise right here. Take out the $200 million for the mall. Put it for small business. Will you agree right now, Congressman Waters, that we'll be on our way to passage?
The president more than compromised. He took out the $200 million, and it wasn't just facade. That structure is sinking into the ground, and it needs to be repaired. That was job creating right there, but he took it out. And he also took out the family planning money in Medicaid. He went more than halfway in trying to meet the concerns
Barrett, is that true? Are you
Now,
complaining about something?
Wait a minute.
Hold on. Are you complaining about something the president has already compromised on?
No, I said the $200 million had been taken out.
So it's gone.
But
It's gone.
that's correct. But let's talk about
But
this.
hang on, because Brian asked you about something you want out and where you'd be willing to compromise. So let's talk about the bill as it exists now and how we can work towards passage all together, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, you pass it without Congressman Barrett, so it's going to find out what you can do to make the compromises necessary. I mean, there's a lot of debate here at CNBC, and there's no doubt that some of the spending is just spending that doesn't directly stimulate job growth. But you need to come to us and say, you know what, this is what needs to get in there, whether it's the AMT, whether it's extending the tax cut for new home buyers. I mean, we need some specifics here.
Well, and I think that's a perfectly good example. Let's put some more tax stimulus in there for small businesses. If you want to talk about the $7,500 credit for first-time or for home buyers, I think that's another good place. Let's talk about lowering the two tax brackets for the lower stratus, the individual taxpayer. Things like that will stimulate this economy, not through the government sector, guys, but through the private sector.
Okay, I don't want to talk to either of you guys anymore. I want the both of you to talk to each other. We would very much like Maxine Waters and Gresham Barrett get together, come back for a bill with the American people. We can pass it. We'll stimulate the economy. I am very, very thankful for both of your time.
I'm going to follow the example of my president who outreached to the Republicans.
Thank you.
We're saying to them, come on, work with us.
Congresswoman, thank you very much. Congressman Barrett, thank you very much.
I'm confident they're going to work together now.
Go talk. We're going to work together.
I feel good about that.
The camera goes off there.
Okay.
You know.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. About half of all U.S. workers are employed by small businesses. What does the stimulus package mean for them? Scott Baxter is CEO of his own high-end architectural company. Scott, thanks for joining us. You say this plan is a disaster for small business. How come?
It doesn't do anything for us. The problem is not small business generates, as you may know, generates more jobs per year than large business does. 55% of the population works for small businesses.
So what do you want? What would you like to see?
What would I like to see?
Yeah.
A less complex system. I spend...
So what does that mean? A simpler tax code? Would you like to see? I mean, we're interested in this. What do you want?
Yeah, less taxes. I hate these programs where you're going to give me a short-term stimulus without the long-term benefit of it.
It's got to be permanent.
It's got to be permanent.
Okay.
Exactly. You're going to the concept that we're going to attract investors like myself and others because you're going to save some tax money next year by accelerating expense write-offs.
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
Scott, we love your ideas. We're going to bring Maxine Waters back in and see how she feels about your ideas.
Now, wait a minute. It's my
We're going
turn,
to get it
isn't
done.
Yes.
Representative Waters, what do you think about that? What do you think about Scott? What
Small
Scott
business
just said?
talking to you. Small business of America.
Just a moment. Let me just say this. He says he wants to have assistance and monies for small businesses. There's a lot of money in here. When you look at a highway project, much of that's done by contractors, private contractors who have small businesses and medium-sized businesses. That's going to create more jobs and put more money back into the community. When you look at the transit projects, many of those are small businesses. These are not government people.
So we're going to have trickle-down government. Is basically what you're proposing.
Hang on, let Scott respond.
I'm not. By the way, I'm not advocating either side, from a political perspective. But I can tell you this: okay, the concept of trickling down to small business is ridiculous. It cost me 45% more to navigate bureaucracy per employee than a large company does. I generate 78% of the new jobs in America every year. Okay, and you're going to start telling me that I'm going to get the benefit out of infrastructure projects that, by the way, are impossible to navigate too. Small companies don't have the infrastructure to create a division specifically to sell to the government because the complexity of selling to the government is crazy.
Well, Scott, I want to take a step back really quickly because in the House Republican counterproposal, there is a part of it specifically that speaks to small business, but give the two members of Congress some insight into what's going on in your world right now. And specifically, how is your access to credit? How are your day-to-day operations going? And what are your problems?
Okay, the problems are complexity. You give me these programs, and we're involved in government programs.
No, but what about your day-to-day business, your actual business?
Yeah, the actual business, small businesses, especially startups. I happen to be just a 2-year-old business, We've never had access